Welcome to the deep dive. We're jumping right in today with a stack of your sources.
That's right.
And the topic is really specific, pretty fascinating, actually. The global market for blue dimension stones.
Yeah, this whole analysis is really built around the material you sent over. It gives us a window into, well, a really interesting niche in the natural stone industry.
Absolutely. So our mission here is basically to unpack the key insights from your source about this market. We're looking at how these, uniquely colored stones get used.
Mm.
The source points to things like high-end architecture, detailed landscaping work.
And even memorial structures,
Yeah,
apparently.
right. And it seems there are some pretty clear reasons for the growth.
Yeah, your source definitely highlights that. Talks about rising investments in real estate globally, a real boom in luxury construction projects, and also ongoing urban infrastructure development. Those seem to be the main engines.
Okay, makes sense. So we'll track the market's growth path, see how things look regionally across the globe.
And really nail down what your source suggests is pushing this specific stone segment forward.
Right. So let's start with that big picture, the global view from your source. What jumps out right away is the growth trajectory.
It really does. So the value back in 2021, your source puts it at $595.1 million globally.
Okay, nearly 600 million. And then by 2025?
It's projected to hit $780 million. That's quite a significant jump in just 4 years.
Yeah, definitely. But the forecast goes further out, right?
It does. Looking ahead to 2033, the prediction is, wow, pretty dramatic. $3,340.2 million.
Yeah.
So over $1.3 billion.
Wow. Okay, so the market's basically expected to more than double in what, 12 years?
Exactly. And
Hmm.
that works out, according to your source, to a compound annual growth rate, a TGR of a pretty healthy 7% over that whole period.
7%. Consistent growth.
And your source keeps pointing back to those core drivers,
Yeah.
architectural demand, luxury building trends, landscaping uses. Seems these are the fundamentals pushing things forward everywhere.
Okay, global picture clear, solid growth driven by those applications. Let's zoom in a bit. How does your source break this down by region? Maybe start with North America.
Sure. North America, based on your source, is definitely a major player. It kicked off at $183.3 million in 2021.
Okay.
And it shows a healthy climb to $238.9 million by 2025.
And the longer view to 2033.
Your source projects it hitting $403.4 million. That gives it a regional tech GR of 6.8%.
So 6.8%, just a tick below the global average, but still that's very solid expansion.
Definitely robust.
And within North America, the source gets more granular,
Yeah.
right? Countries.
It does. And no big surprise here, the United States is leading the charge.
Right.
The U.S. market on its own, it was $131.2 million in 2021. It's expected to reach $169.2 million in 2025,
Okay.
and then projected to hit $278.7 million by 2033, a really big chunk of the North American total.
In Canada.
Canada's next up, according to the source.
Yeah.
Value is going from $36.1 million in 2021 up to $48.3 million in 2025, and then forecasted at $85.5 million for 2033.
Okay. And Mexico.
Mexico also showing strong growth in your source material. It's basically set to more than double its market size, from $15.9 million in 2021, hitting $21.5 million in 2025, and then reaching $39.1 million by 2033.
All right, so that's North America covered. Let's hop across the Atlantic. Europe. Your source seemed to indicate this was like the biggest regional market initially.
It was, yeah. Back in 2021, Europe represented a really substantial $227.9 million market,
Right.
growing to $291.8 million by 2025. And the projection for 2033 takes it up to $478.4 million.
So that gives Europe a CGR of, what, 6.4% over the period?
That's right, 6.4%. So
Okay.
a bit lower than North America's rate, but still considerable growth on what was already a larger base.
Then who are the main players within Europe, according to your source?
Well, the UK and Germany are highlighted as the biggest markets there.
Okay.
The UK is forecast to grow from $49.2 million back in 2021 to $98.1 million in 2033, so essentially doubling.
Doubling, wow.
And Germany shows it, well, a very similar path, from $42.4 million up to $85.2 million over that same stretch.
And the midpoint, 2025.
Yes. For 2025, the source has the UK at $61.9 million and Germany at $53.4 million.
Got it. France and Italy also seem pretty significant in the numbers.
They are. France is expected to go from $30.5 million in 2021 up to $59.3 million by 2033. That's $38.2 million in 2025.
Okay.
Well, Italy moves from $23.9 million up to $49.8 million, with $30.6 million as the 2025 figure.
And your source mentioned Russia, too.
It did, yeah. Described as smaller but definitely growing. It shows an increase from $10 million in 2021 up to $22.5 million by 2033. That's $13.1 million in 2025.
Now, this is interesting. The source flagged Spain, didn't it? Something about its growth rate.
It did, yeah.
Good catch.
While it's, smaller than the UK or Germany overall, Spain's flagged as having the highest KGR among those major European countries.
Really? What are the numbers?
It's projected to grow from $21.7 million in 2021, hitting $28.9 million in 2025, and reaching $52.2 million by 2033. That growth rate definitely stands out in the European data presented.
Interesting dynamic there.
It really is.
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai.
Stands out in the European data presented.
Interesting dynamic there.
It really is. The source also includes Luxembourg, noted as, quite a small market, going from $3.9 million in 2021 up to $6.2 million in 2033, passing $4.7 million in 2025.
And the rest of Europe.
Right. That collective category also adds quite a bit. It moves from $33.7 million in 2021 to $44.9 million in 2025, and then projected at $78.5 million by 2033.
Okay, comprehensive look at Europe. Let's shift gears again. Head east, Asia Pacific. Your source really seemed to highlight this region for strong growth, right? One of the highest KGR.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, Asia Pacific is projected for some really significant growth. From $121.1 million in 2021 up to $306.2 million by 2033, with a 2025 value of $165 million.
And that translates to, what was the CAGR?
An impressive 8%, according to the source. So yeah, really positioning it as a major engine for this whole market.
8%, okay. And China's the big story there.
Absolutely. China's the largest market by far in Asia Pacific. It's expected to nearly triple in value.
Triple.
Wow. Yeah, from $43.7 million in 2021, hitting $61.9 million in 2025, and then projected at $122.5 million by 2033.
Huge numbers. What about Japan?
Japan also showing very solid growth. From $24.8 million in 2021 up to $56.3 million by 2033. That's $32.5 million in 2025.
And your source called out India specifically, I think. High growth rate there, too.
It did, yeah. Highlighted as having one of the region's fastest growth rates, it's expected to more than double its market size.
From what to what?
From $13.8 million in 2021, reaching $19.5 million in 2025, and then projected at $38.9 million by 2033.
All showing steady expansion, according to your source. South Korea goes from $10.3 million in 21 up to $24.2 million in 33. That's $13.7 million in 25.
Right.
Australia is projected to grow from $9.1 million to $20.5 million, $11.9 million in 25. And Southeast Asia, as a group, is forecast for a, quote, healthy rise from $15.3 million to $37.1 million, $20.5 million in 25. Okay. Asia Pacific really powering ahead then. Let's turn to Latin America. The source mentioned Brazil leading the way there.
Yes, Brazil is definitely the key country highlighted in your source for Latin America, showing a strong growth from $14.4 million back in 2021, hitting $20 million in 2025, and projected to reach $37.9 million by 2033.
Okay. And Argentina.
Argentina follows, projected to increase its market size from $5.7 million in 2021 up to $13.3 million by 2033. That's $7.6 million in 2025.
And Colombia. The source mentioned something about momentum there.
It did, yeah. Use the phrase notable momentum, going from $3.8 million in 21 to $10.4 million by 33.
Exactly. Another high growth spot highlighted in your source. Despite its, smaller overall size, Peru boasts a really robust KGR of 10.2%.
10.2%, wow.
Yeah, expanding from just $1.4 million in 2021, passing $1.9 million in 2025, and projected to hit $4 million by 2033.
Quite the rate. And Chile. Chile also demonstrating significant expansion, according to the source. Projected to go from $2.4 million to $7 million between 2021 and 2033, with $3.3 million in 2025.
All right. Last region from the source, the Middle East and Africa, MEA. What's the picture there?
So in MEA, your source shows Egypt's market rising from $2.9 million in 2021 up to $6.2 million in 2033. That's $3.7 million in 2025.
Okay. And Turkey?
Turkey's market is projected to increase quite a bit more, from $5.3 million to $12 million over that same period. That's $6.9 million in 2025.
And the rest of the Middle East?
That category, according to your source, shows slower but still steady growth,
Yeah.
contributing $3.5 million in 2021, $4.4 million in 2025, and expected to reach $6.9 million by 2033.
So it sounds like even within MEA, while some parts are slower, others like Turkey and Egypt are definitely participating in that broader global growth trend we're seeing.
That seems to be the story from your source, yes. A
Yeah.
bit more mixed, perhaps, but still upward movement overall.
Okay, so let's try and pull all these, numbers and regional snapshots together. What's the main takeaway, the overarching story your source is telling us about this blue dimension stones market?
Well, I think what really stands out is just how universal this seems to be. These stones are finding a place and driving growth across incredibly diverse economies. You see it in developed nations, you see it in developing nations.
Right, it's not just one hot spot.
Exactly. Your source really paints a picture of this not being some fleeting trend confined to one part of the world. It's broad-based.
And it keeps coming back to those core uses the source mentioned right at the start.
Right.
Architecture, landscaping, interior design.
Yeah, those seem to be the key sectors where the demand is really concentrated, according to the data you provided.
Which raises an interesting point, doesn't it? The source isn't just throwing numbers at us. It sort of implies that the market's success hinges on, well, two main things.
Which are?
The aesthetic appeal designers and builders actively want that blue stone look.
Right, the visual draw.
And second, the material's resilience. The fact that it holds up well makes it suitable for buildings, for outdoor spaces, things that need to last.
Ah, so it's a combination of look and performance driving it. That makes sense. A market driven by both beauty and brawn, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. So if we synthesize everything based purely on the figures and insights in your source, the blue dimension stones market is clearly on this strong upward path.
More than doubling globally by 2033.
Right, and it's being pushed by demand in these specific, often high-value applications across pretty much every major region, from the big established markets like North America and Europe.
To that really rapid growth we saw highlighted in Asia Pacific and even strong pockets in Latin America and MEA.
The story your source seems to tell is about a maybe once niche material really finding significant global traction.
Yeah, driven by very specific needs and desires within the construction and design worlds.
It really makes you think about how specific material characteristics like the unique look and the toughness of these blue stones described in your source can actually carve out and, well, significantly grow a global market.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of reflects maybe broader shifts in, design preferences or maybe even investment priorities around the world.
That's a really interesting final thought to chew on. And it all stems from the data you shared, so thank you for providing the source material that let us take this deep dive today.
Okay, let's unpack this just for you. Today, we're doing a deep dive into, well, a pretty fascinating world. Blue dimension stones.
It really is. A bit of a paradox, actually.
Exactly. We're using insights from a source called Blue Dimension Stones Market Dynamics, our mission, to help you quickly grasp what's shaping this niche but really interesting market.
Yeah. How does something so rare and, frankly, so expensive become this global luxury item?
Right. So maybe start with the basics. What exactly are dimension stones in this context?
Sure. So we're talking about natural stone, things quarried from the earth, then cut, finished, basically prepped for building and design work.
Got it. And the blue part is...
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.
Basically prepped for building and design work.
Got it. And the blue part is key here.
Absolutely. We're focusing on these unique blue types. They're really prized for their, distinct colors and patterns. Think of it as using nature's own art for very high-end stuff.
Using nature's art. I like that. Okay, so our source says a big driver is demand in luxury architecture and landscape design, too.
Definitely. It's a huge factor. I mean, think about it. If you're designing an upscale hotel or a luxury home, you want something unique, something that stands out.
Something you don't see everywhere.
Precisely. And stones like sodalite, that deep blue metamorphic rock, often with white veins, or azul macabas.
Ah, yes, the famous one from Brazil.
That's the one. Incredible, vivid blue quartzite, or even certain blue granites. They offer this, well, aesthetic impact that engineered materials just can't replicate.
And where do we see them most? Big statement pieces.
Oh, yeah. Quite significant uses. Feature walls that really grab your attention, premium flooring, countertops, especially in those luxury hotels, high-end residences, even corporate lobbies.
Okay.
Outdoors, too. striking building facades, fancy garden installations, public monuments sometimes.
And it's not just looks, right? Durability must play a
A
role.
huge role. These stones are tough. They handle weather really well, freeze-thaw cycles, UV rays. The color stays vibrant, they last.
Beautiful and strong, makes sense for the price tag. And global trade helps meet this demand.
It does. Countries like Brazil, India, South Africa, places with these rare deposits, they're the major exporters.
Uh-huh.
And Brazil, for example, has really invested in processing units right near the quarries. It makes it more efficient to ship these heavy finished products worldwide.
Okay, so strong demand, better logistics pushing growth. But what's holding it back? There have to be restraints.
Oh, for sure. The biggest ones are cost and just plain availability. Rarity is the key word.
Expensive to get out and process.
Incredibly.
Yeah.
Extraction takes expertise.
Yeah.
Then the processing. You need skilled labor, advanced machinery, like CNC machines for precision cutting.
Right.
All that puts these stones at a much higher price point than, say, engineered quartz or even high-end ceramic tiles.
Yeah.
It naturally limits who can afford them.
I see. So the luxury factor cuts both ways. What about the environmental side of quarrying?
That's another major constraint. And environmental regulations are getting stricter, as they should.
Uh-huh. Things like land restoration.
Exactly. Land restoration, dust control, emissions. Complying with all that adds significant cost. And sometimes it can cause delays in getting permits or operating. It's necessary, but it definitely impacts the business.
Adds cost, adds time. And you mentioned availability. It's not just price, it's finding the stuff.
Critically limited sometimes. Take Macabas again. It mainly comes from specific areas in Brazil.
Ah, so that creates potential bottlenecks.
Precisely. You get these sort of regional monopolies, and the supply chain becomes vulnerable. If there's, say, political instability or a transport strike.
Prices could spike, supply dries up.
Exactly. You see volatility. It highlights the risk tied to these super concentrated natural resources.
That makes sense. So given these challenges, cost, regulations, scarcity, what's happening on the innovation front, any key trends?
Yeah, a few interesting things. One is using technology for customization. Think CNC milling, digital design tools.
To do intricate work.
Right. For really high-end projects, maybe museums or special monuments, clients want unique engravings, specific surface finishes. Tech makes that level of bespoke work more feasible.
So using tech to make the rare even more unique and tailored. Interesting.
It is. And alongside that, there's a real push towards more sustainable quarrying practices.
Okay, good. Like what?
Things like recycling the water used in cutting and polishing, using non-toxic agents, making real efforts to preserve biodiversity around the quarry sites. And getting certified helps too. Meeting standards like ISO 14001 for environmental management or helping projects achieve LED green building status. That's becoming more important to buyers.
Good to see that focus shifting. Anything else in terms of how they're used?
Yes, actually, a really clever one is integrating these stones into prefabricated modular panels.
Oh, how does that work?
Well, you get the look, the aesthetic of solid stone, but in a panel form. It's gaining ground in like high-rise urban projects.
Because it's lighter, maybe?
Yeah.
Easier to install?
Both. Lighter, so less load on the building structure, and much faster to install on site. So it tackles cost and time, but you still get that luxury feel.
That's smart. Making these ancient materials work with modern construction speeds.
It's a great example of blending tradition with innovation, to overcome some of those inherent limitations.
Okay, so this deep dive really shows this push and pull, doesn't it? You've got the intense luxury demand for uniqueness.
Pulled against the fundamental realities of rarity, cost, and environmental responsibility.
And then technology and sustainability trying to kind of bridge that divide.
Exactly. It's a really dynamic interplay. Understanding these forces, it tells you a lot about the journey of these materials, from deep in the earth to, these stunning buildings and designs.
It definitely makes you look at a blue granite countertop a bit differently. And it leaves us, and you listening, with a final thought to mull over. In a world that increasingly wants both high-tech personalization and serious environmental accountability, how will the basic fact of rarity, the high cost of these specific blue stones, shape their future? Can they stay purely exclusive, or will innovation find a way to make scarce and sustainable more, scalable? Something to think about.
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.